I'm sure my scatty style of easily distracted information and presenting really gets on some people's tits, and try living with it. Just try living with it. I've always been like it, and I think it stems from, you know, I came from the era where children were seen and not heard, so you bottled everything up, really. So when you're an adult and you get the chance to talk to people and have your own conversations and stuff like that, you tend to be a bit blurty, and it's the mindset of get it out before you're told to shut up. But anyway, bye. I'm still, even after all this while, still trying to find a presenting style, if you like, that works for me, works for you lot. And in the end, we're just still going down the bumbling, easily distracted footwit route, which, if that's the way it's going to be, that's the way it's going to be. So anyway, the preempt of this video is I've always tried to show the mistakes as well as the successes, because quite often showing mistakes means other people don't make them, and it is better for me to cock it up than you to cock it up, because none of my videos are how-tos or anything like that. It's just, I'm just showing you what I'm doing. But the caveat for this is, don't always listen to advice. And that's a loaded statement, because sometimes advice is very good, people know what they're doing, and quite often I'll get some mates say, well, or my uncle or something, and he'll go, well, why didn't you do it like that, why didn't you do it like that? Some people just don't think like that. If you're presented with a problem, people sort it out differently, or they go and refer to a manual. So anyway, what you'll learn from this video is all the weeks of frigging about sourcing ZX1100 oil lines, etc, etc, might have been for nothing. Anyway, on with the video. Enjoy it. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and let me know if you go through the same sort of working out procedures and end up cocking yourself. So for that, on with the vid. Hello children, I was sitting comfortably. Read. The video you're about to see is the basically culmination of sorting out the oil lines, and you might be surprised, or probably not, by the end result, because the end result was staring at me in the face all the time. I just didn't go down that thought pattern, and if you've been on the journey with me, you'll know I haven't been on that thought pattern, because we've been mainly working on other people's advice that you need this, you need that, which is not wrong at the time, but come to another conclusion. Anyway, one of my subscribers, Dundee Deck, said he got a bit lost on the last video as regards of the oil lines and stuff, and he says by now I should have worked out what you need to make a ZX1100 exhaust work on a ZX10, and could I do a summary. So yes, for you I will do a summary. Basically, get your ZX11 exhaust, get your ZX1100 sump, I would go for a later one, because a later one has the oil pressure switch there, and it's closer to the original wiring distance wise to the ZX10, so you only need to make up a small bridge wire for them to work. Now I was very lucky, because my sump came with the oil pressure switch already. If not, you can't, they're exactly the same, you can just take yours out of the ZX10 and fit that. The only other thing I try and source, and you still get it from Kawasaki, is the fitting for the back bolt, because most replacement exhausts will have they'll have a bracket or something in there for you to use it. To be honest, I think the exhaust is sturdy enough without it. The other sump that came actually had the original Kawasaki fitting on the back, which is a rubber bushing basically, but the rubber bushing was one that goes either side of a basically a bracket that's already on the exhaust, on the original exhaust. That bushing doesn't fit into the bracket that was on the Motard. It's different. I ended up cutting the bushing in half, putting a washer either side and bolting it that way. I'm sure you'll find your own way of doing it. So ZX1100 sump, make sure it has the oil pressure valve, which goes there, goes in here, goes there. Now if they've fitted it to the ZZR, I'm fitting it basically, because that is a restrictor, but a restrictor can work two ways. It can increase oil pressure slightly, or it can decrease it. It can work either way depending on how it's set up. So I just fit that because they fitted it to a ZZR11. The only other thing I'd recommend, new gasket. Definitely new gasket, because the old one I can guarantee you won't come off in one piece. And I've used the original Kawasaki gasket, not like the Athena paper type, only because the original is metalled. Also get a new O-ring for the oil filter surround, get a new O-ring for there. Make sure you don't forget the bit that goes in there. I'll go over this in the main video. This is just a summary. So sump with pressure relief, new gaskets and O-rings, and the surprising conclusion is, after all the advice was to buy ZZR1100 oil lines, and then we discovered that the ZX10 oil cooler wouldn't work with it. I can't get it to mount neatly or anything like that. Somebody who's a bit better than metal and stuff could probably make it work, but it didn't look right. It looked horrible. Yeah, the conclusion we came to was, and the painful part of this is, I already had the parts. Make up your own oil line. Just make your own oil lines. In the original ZX10 cooler works. You can just route them as you wish. The advice about buying the ZZR1100 oil lines was not incorrect. You do need different oil lines, because the ZX10 ones literally will, well, they'll smash into the headers. There's no clearance for them at all. So yes, you do need different oil lines. Just make your own, save yourself big headaches. All I've got to do is just order a bit more of this, because obviously I've made the other one, which I now have to chop a couple of inches off to make it fit quite nicely. But I never went down that train of thought, because we were on the ZZR1100 oil line train of thoughts and trying to get that to work. Not for 1 minute did I think of making my own oil lines up. So basically that's all you need really. Your ZZR1100 exhaust, put no exhaust gaskets on, your 1100 sump, and make your own oil lines. So that is your summary. So now, if you don't want to, you don't have to watch the rest of the video. But yeah, it was a bit of a what do you call it? An epiphany. I'm going to get the I'm going to get a new bit of braid as well. I'm going to get the Dremel through that, get the Dremel cutting disc through that, put some braiding on the line I'm going to make, and another subscriber had, could have been Craig if I've got your name wrong, I do apologise, that I said I wasn't going to put all, you know, them horrible tacky wanky fittings you get for braid that's supposed to make it look like a Goodrich hose, but it's quite obviously a Jubilee clip wearing a skirt. I don't want anything like that, because it's pretending to be something it isn't. But he had the idea of, when you've cut the braid and all this lot, we always tape it to cut it, but then you can take the tape off, and when you fitted the banjo, run a bit of heat shrink around it, and that should do it, and I think that'll work. So yeah, so yes, enjoy the rest of the video, laugh at my complete incompetence, and hopefully that saved quite a few of you a lot of head scratching. Now, I didn't mind being the guinea pig for this, but no, if I would have gone down the make your own oil line train of thought before all this started, I could have saved a few quid, let's put it that way, because I ended up buying the third oil line for the ZZR, which you don't need, which I thought at the time you did. At the time, as the problems presented themselves, you just thought you needed that bit, and that bit. You know, train of thought gets derailed sometimes. So yeah, crack on. Job we've got to do on this ZZR 1100 exhaust conversion from the ZX10 is I'm getting rid of the oil cooler because I don't want to dish out for a ZZR 1100 oil cooler and then run the risk of it not fitting the ZX radiator, because the ZZR 1100 radiator is curved for more efficiency. So doing away with the oil cooler saves a lot of hassle, because basically for the conversion all you're going to need is a ZZR 1100 sump, and see if you can get the mounting for the exhaust that screws in the back, and then make up a bypass line. The only other thing is this is the wire from the ZZR 1100 oil pressure sensor, which is up there. And of course the other one, if depending what year ZZR you get, the other one will be next to the oil filter. And this is the original oil pressure sensor wire, which is let's see, I think it's that connector there. Basically what I'm going to do is remove that boot from there, because obviously that's now doing nothing, because there's a boot on the other one. And we're going to chop the end off of this. I might just take that bit of the loom out so I can do it easily. Chop the boot off that, and either I'll either put a bullet connector on there, or I'll chop the bullet off that, and I'll just join the wires with a solder connector, because they're weatherproof, they're more than up to the job. There's not really any strain, vibration or anything that's going to go through that. So that's the next job. So that's today's job, or this week's job, is now I've got rid of my old oil, I'm just going to leave that drain pan drain for a while, wash it all out with degreaser or a bit of petrol or something like that, so it's very clean inside, because I now need to drop the new oil that I put in the bike, so I can take the oil lines off and fit the bypass hose. Once the bypass hose is on, as far as I'm aware, the conversion's done. It's done. My mistake is I overthought it. I overthought that, yeah, we're going to need ZZR 1100 this, we're going to need ZZR 1100 that, and also it was a little bit of hearsay from other people as well that said, oh, I've heard that you know, people say you need the ZZR 1100 oil lines and stuff like this. Well, it's true, you do, because these are the ZZR 1100 oil lines, and you can see they're completely differently routed from the ZX10. On the ZX10, this cooler was the other way around. The exits are at the bottom, and the lines pretty much go straight through the headers. Not enough room to do that with this system, or I'm expecting another ZZR system. A ZZR system, all four pipes go under the engine and then off to the side, and then even on an original ZZR system you'll have the right hand side silencer comes in and joins. So yeah, the original ZX10 pipes won't work, but for this, especially for this Motad system, all you're going to need is the ZZR 1100 sump, and just make yourself up a bypass line. And like I say, the attachment for the exhaust at the rear of the sump still available from Kawasaki, the bushing and the bolt, but the bushing does not fit this nexus, so I cut the bushing in half so there was a bit of rubber either side, and just used washers and then bolted it together. And if I'd known it was going to be that super simple at the start, we probably would have accomplished this weeks ago. But the only other job really is just reconnecting an oil pressure switch to the loom, and that's going to be easier than falling off a log. Basically, the most hassle with this is going to be just draining the oil again. So I hope that's made it a bit clearer than the weeks and weeks of shady videos. So yeah, if you ZZR 1100 exhausts are far more numerous than the ZX10 on the used market, and by the looks of it, some of the replacement exhausts that are on offer brand new from people like Predator and stuff follow the ZZR pattern. So you're going to need a ZZR sump anyway, because your oil pressure switch will be in the way on a ZX10. I mean, it's not just a little bit in the way, it actually fouls the root of the exhaust. If you want to live dangerously, you could just get a blanking plug and just take the oil pressure switch out, but I don't like that option, so that's why we went down the 1100 sump option. So yeah, so that's it. I'm going to crack on. Right, before anybody comments on the state of the bottom of this drain pan, this is like this because I knew I wasn't going to use it again. I drained the coolant along with the oil, and that is the resulting sediment, which just shows how much shit. I mean, bear in mind, we flushed the bike's cooling system through several times, run it up to temperature, put proper flushes through it, the lot. How much crap actually using the bike produces. So yeah, so I mean, hopefully we've got a cleaner system now. I mean, it doesn't overheat or anything, but that just shows how much crap it knocks out after riding the thing rather than just letting it warm up. Nice. We have a clean drain pan. It is clean, trust me, but the light reflections and stuff just show up the scratches and stuff, so it might look like there's something in there. There isn't. It's spotless. So basically what I'm going to do now is dump the oil out the bike, but I'm not going to use the drain plug. I'm just going to use the oil line fitting, because that's what we're swapping. So I am going to take both the oil lines off, drain the cooler, have a poo, and then fit the bypass hose. And so we'll crack on with it then. Yes. The oil line fittings, I hope you can see this, because I don't want to get the camera too near this. The standard banjo bolts on the ZX10, more than likely the ZZR 1100 too, I think they're the same part number, is a 14mm head, and I think they're an M12 bolt. So the reason I'm draining it at the line is that's what we're changing. So that it just makes sense. And then I'm going to buzz it out with a power ratchet. I did have some wanking gloves about. Hang on. Yeah, I'm going to put gloves on for this, because usually when you're trying to get a drain bolt out or something like that, you know what happens. If you're not quick enough, you end up with oil up to your elbows, and it's going to happen. It happens every single time. So I'm going to put gloves on today, because it just instead of just getting a bit of crap off my hands, it just saves you the job of getting a load of poo off. Right, power ratchet, wrong way. I'm just going to buzz this out and let it go down, and hopefully it will drain nice and straight into the pan, and it won't shoot sideways and hit me or you. There we go. Now obviously the oil cap is on the other side, so the reason why it's draining slowly is because obviously it's got to ingest air. But that's not bad. There we go. There's the other sealing washer. I've got spare crush washers, brand new spare crush washers, because I bought the kit to do the oil kit. So you know, I've got like 4 sets and I only need 2. So I'll replace the crush washers with the new. Nice. Ooh. Right, I'm going to go around the other side of the bike and I'm going to undo the oil filler cap because I've still got to undo the obviously the front cooler hose. Now what I'm going to do here is just start this banjo off by hand, because we're going into aluminium. I want to make sure it's threading properly. Let's get you out of the way. They can sometimes be a little bit awkward. Let's just chuck that in there. But you just want to make sure, with any bolt into aluminium really, that it's going in square, and that isn't. It's not going in actually, so because I can't see. There we go. I should really have rigged the light up. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to literally seat this not even finger tight, because I just want to nip it up so it. I was surprised at the lack of oil coming out, but it's going into a port. It's got to go through a port before it goes through here. So that's, you know, the lack of oil loss. I mean, if you look how much we've lost so far, it's next to nothing. I mean, what's just stripped down there is coming out the old oil line. Now we're going to take the oil line off the front, and I'm expecting to lose more then. But what I'm just going to do for now, I'm just going to lower this oil line. Just see if any more comes out, and it hasn't. So I just want to minimise the splashage. Right, I'm going to move the camera, and I'm not sure whether I can even get you in for a decent view up front, but we'll try. We'll put the camera there and we'll just see what happens. Ooh, red gloves. Red gloves? Blue gloves, Jim. Are you going colourblind now as well as stupid? Just rammed a bit of tissue in. It's easier, obviously, to take the lines off the oil cooler first, because luckily this orientation, obviously the lines are at the top, so the risk of spillage is quite low. I'm just going to take the old crush washers off this, because we can use any of these bolts. I mean, we can use the bolt that's on the front. Now, because the exhaust is already in place, that bolt, to put it on, is going to be quite awkward. But you know, we'll just have to battle through. But oil on the front of the camera, so I don't know how much in focus you've been. But anyway, we're now about to crack the front union. Bear in mind it will drip a bit of oil on the exhaust. Well, even though this is going through a port as well, this is where it might just piss the oil out. I don't know, this is unknown territory to me, so let's undo this. There we go, and see the other hose has dropped. This is where obviously you can see how much clearance we've not got, which is, you know, where a wobble socket comes in handy, but it's going to be really fiddly to fit that union without dropping the exhaust again. It can be done because I've done it. Yeah, so we're getting some drippage, which is perfectly acceptable. And then no, still can't undo it by hand, so we'll just does help if you get the spanner on the right way around as well. Anyway, you get the idea. Right folks, in the tradition of showing cock-ups as well as successes, I have come across just a little snaggage with the line I've made up. Now the good thing about this, all this can be disassembled, etc. So, you know, it's not like we've gone and had an hard line made up or anything like that. The problem I didn't foresee or didn't calculate for correctly, because I'm a knob, is yes, this one on the bottom of the sump will fit okay, and it routed round perfectly. You saw me do the routing on the spare sump. One thing I didn't consider or forgot to consider was that one for the head feed, I hope you can see this, is obviously spaced with a spacer, and it come out, so I've only got that much room to bend a pipe round to it, and it was proving to be a pain in the bottom, which is why I stopped filming putting the bolt in. And then I've got to thinking, we can't use the standard ZX lines because they literally will they'll foul the header, they'll come through. But if I order another length of hose, or maybe 2 lengths at £6, what's to stop us? Let's go here, look, that goes there. What's to stop us making new flexible lines up for the original oil cooler, which is something I've just not thought about, because we were going down the hard line route using original parts. It never occurred to me that I could actually make my own lines. I've got the fittings, I just need another length of pipe. So for £12 I could make up some new lines, which might be the way to go, because we'll retain the oil cooler, which to some people is a good thing. To me, I don't think it makes a difference, but at least then when we put the decorative grill on the front of the radiator and what have you, it won't look out of place if there isn't a cooler there. So after all these weeks of trial and error, and it has been trial and error, and the only reason it took so long is because I've had to wait for the money to be available to order the parts. I've had to basically be in the mood to do it. You know, I like to have a clear day or a couple of clear days to get cracked into such stuff. If I've got, like, I'm on afternoons at the moment, so you've got the morning to yourself, but you know what it's like if you work afternoons or stuff like that. Sometimes you don't go to bed till 3-4 in the morning, and you know, get up at 10 in the morning, and that's just your pattern. It's like with nights, you think in your head, oh great, I've got the day to myself, but you haven't. So I might explore. I'm going to have a little bit of a play with a little bit of line I've got left now, and indeed this line, and just see if it's worth making up our lines, because I think this side definitely won't be a problem, because we can direct it out, because it's flexible, we can direct it out a little bit so it's well clear of the headers. I might even make a decent job of cutting the braid. No, it's not going to happen.
but braid would be nice if it's running near headers. It's a little bit of heat insulation. So I think that might be the way to go. So do I now pull the video that says making a bypass line? Well, no, because the procedure to make a bypass line would be the same for most bikes, and some people might find it useful. It's just that I'm now going to put a caveat on this one, is that I routed it incorrectly. So if you do your own work, probably even just drop the exhaust, measure your clearances. This is what I should have done. Measure my clearances and then do the line, rather than do it on a mock-up sump, which I thought worked quite well. I was quite happy with myself. But yeah, it turns out I basically fucked myself as well. So yeah, I think that's the next thing I'm going to explore, is let's make our own lines. So you get extra content this time. But see, if I was any good, if I was actually good at this, we'd only get to a couple of videos and you'd go, oh, that was easy, and you'd do it yourself. But instead, I'm giving you this cornucopia of crap, and I hope you all enjoy it. Well, I think we've found the solution. But to understand the solution, you've got to understand the logic of the pattern we've gone down with the ZZR oil lines, the possibility of finding a ZZR cooler. I'm sure I'm only one of a handful of people that have done a conversion to a ZZR 1100 exhaust. Don't see much about them in forums and stuff like that. There's a lot of hearsay, and it was through hearsay, through another one of the guys on the forum, where he said, oh yeah, I've heard if you need a ZZR exhaust, you need the ZZR oil lines. And he was spot on, bang on, correct. Where we trip ourselves up is we then get into that loop. Your mind and your problem solving goes to that loop. We need this, we need that, we need to make it work. And sometimes you just need to forget everything, work it out yourself. Now, the line I've made up for the bottom of the sump on the other side, which I've just shown because I completely forgot, fouled the other union. Making our own lines, guys, is going to work, and you've got to understand the thought process that goes into this. If you're doing a conversion like this, you take advice from people that do know better than you, or may have heard some information that's useful, so you run with it because you think this is going to save me a lot of time. At no point, literally at no point, did I think to make up my own lines for this conversion. I did think about repairing the other lines or replacing the ZX10 lines. So at what point did that option go out of my brain? I don't know. But the option I'm now going to do, now I know this works, this is just the line I made up. So we now know we can whack a couple of inches off this, tuck this line in a bit. We're missing the headers quite nicely. But what I might do is just order myself some new hose, and we'll put the braiding on, and we'll keep the braiding on because obviously where it joins that union there, we're going to get a lot of heat from that. These hoses will take the heat. They go up to ridiculous temperatures, and obviously in cars and stuff like that, they can run close to exhaust and stuff. So I haven't got a problem with it. We've also got the option, we've got room to actually direct the line probably upwards and over the water pipe and then round, which just removes it slightly more from the header as well. There is wiggle room on this fitting, so that might be an option, because obviously the water pipe's going to run significantly cooler than the exhaust, significantly. So we've got the option. So I think that is the road I'm going to go down. I'm going to order a bit more line right now. I've got the fittings, so that saved me 12 quid. I'm just going to order a bit more line. So this is, if I would have thought about this the first time I ordered the ZX10B exhaust, and I haven't just then. Now I've considered I've wasted money buying ZX10B and oil pipes and stuff like that, but of course at the time of the thought process that you go through, you don't think you're wasting your money, you think you actually need that part. And all the time, 50 quid kit, which conversely, many of you know, I've probably spent twice that buying oil lines, sumps and stuff like that, but we live and learn. It's better for me to fuck it up than for you lot to fuck it up. So this is what we're going for now. Just replace your ZX10 oil lines with flexi lines and fuck it all. Goodbye.